Australia is a treasure island. Now, for the international viewers, the same would be for you. Your own countries, we are all treasure islands, and the treasure is the natural environment that we coexist with. We've had a lot of thinking in the past 100 years that man can conquer nature. We can't do that. We need to live together. So treasure, think of the environment as our treasure. Now, I am going to mainly talk about Australia, but I will make some allusions to other countries as well. I'd like you to imagine a world where the natural environment was managed sustainably, or as some people say, in a flourishing way, so that humans, sentient beings such as, all sorts of animals, and the diatoms, everybody can flourish. That's the world that we all need, and we are having to move towards it very quickly because of the problems of climate change. The laws in Australia I have called a messy mosaic, as this map demonstrates. And that's because we have legacy issues from when Australia was settled and our federation was granted. And there was an incredible ignorance about science. This is 150 years ago, but the law, and I'm a lawyer and a very passionate lawyer, and I'm really fond of it, but the law has taken some time to catch up. And as this map clearly shows, we are still managing the natural resources of this country in a way that is inappropriate, using artificial political boundaries. This is the NRM, Natural Resource Management Regions. Now, I'll give you a few other examples. In this country, there are 15 definitions of river. There's about 7 or 8 definitions of creek in all of the state laws. There's several state laws that define this. Now, we can't continue with that. The law in Queensland asks and enjoins the people in the government and the community groups to manage the water in Queensland for the benefit of the people in Queensland. This is not appropriate in our natural environment. Some research that I did, funded through the Australian government many years ago, we did a census of what I called water supply businesses. So that's everything from irrigation to urban. And we found there were 333 different water supply businesses in Australia. But the problem was they're in 14 different legal forms. So the cooperation is impossible to achieve when you have different legal regimes and different governance structures and different reporting obligations. And since the reforms that we had here to corporatise, there's also quite a lot of the private sector involved. And I don't have an issue with that per se, but their inclinations are different. So we have a messy mosaic of laws. My idea that I want to present to you is that we create a jigsaw of laws by incorporating a duty to cooperate. We can't unpick the state and federal system in any of the federations, US, Canada, Britain. I'm not saying that, but we insist that there is a duty to cooperate that supervenes, and we make the laws a jigsaw rather than the mosaic. Now, the jigsaw would, of course, reflect, as this model shows you, it reflects that there's interlinkages between groundwater, surface water, and the soils, and so on. So the natural environment is a jigsaw. Why aren't our laws mimicking that? And they can by this simple addition of a duty to cooperate. Now, the common law is not a stranger to duties to cooperate. You've all signed contracts. What you probably don't know is there's an implied duty in any contract you sign, or even any contract you make for a cup of coffee with somebody, that both parties will endeavour to use their best efforts to let the other party achieve the contract. This is implied, so you wouldn't see it in written terms. It's been litigated in Australia and in other common law jurisdictions all the time, and it is shown it's an implied term. So you can, if you're one side of a bargaining, somebody doesn't cooperate, then of course you have a remedy. Then there's duties. Insurance contracts have a duty of utmost good faith, which is added on to this duty to cooperate. And finally, international law has all of the treaties are based on a duty to cooperate and enjoin that in all of their terms between different countries. But there's international water law as well. I know we don't use it, but it does exist in the rest of the world, where there is also a duty to cooperate to achieve equitable and reasonable utilisation. So the common law is not a stranger. Now, how do we achieve a change to the law? Well, this was the civil society protest run by the school children here in Adelaide, and I know it was done in 100 countries at least. The way to change the law in democracies is to have peaceful protests. Gandhi changed the law in the unfair salt tax by enjoining the Indians to not cooperate with the British in administering the salt tax, and the salt tax law was changed. So cooperation is a very important aspect, and the negative of it can change the law. I'm insisting that we ask for the law to add the duty to cooperate. Now, why? There are several reports on this topic, but generally the consensus is it was the lack of joined-up governance, lack of cooperation, that caused the fish kill in the Murray that we had most recently, and will possibly have more. Because there was a death by 100 cuts or 1,000 cuts, several decisions made by several different people, not thinking of what was happening downstairs or downriver, created the problem. Now, I am a lawyer, as I said. I'm also an environmentalist, and I'm a keen hiker. I do lots of artistic work. I'm an ordinary person who has benefited enormously by the education system of this country and the US. And so it is possible to change the law and to work on getting better arrangements. And in fact, as Margaret Mead and others have said, the only thing that has ever really worked is the peaceful protests of civil society. So civil society needs to work together to get us to join up this uneven governance. So the duty of, I would say that there's a jigsaw of laws, and the outcome would be that there would be a duty to cooperate, and therefore we wouldn't have the issues that we've been having with the lack of tied-up governance. The legal words in the duty would be reasonable and equitable uses of water, and this comes from international water law. And so there's quite a lot of litigation about that in Europe that we can rely on. And also we would have transparent processes and good faith. Those are important, the duties that I mentioned before, that come from ordinary contract law. So the issue that I think we need to be aware of is that the duty of good faith can arise, that in democracies we can garner the population to work together, and I think there's a huge social movement towards this with regard to the environment. And if we did this, we could have, rather than 15 definitions of water and watercourse, we could have one. And the public servants that I did a lot of work with when I was doing the research were saying we spend so much time in compliance with ridiculous rules that we haven't got the time to expend our emotional and our intellectual energy on the more important issues, where we're wasting the talent. And that's the thing that I have noticed in all of my research. I have worked with environmentalists, farmers, miners, all sorts of disparate groups. There are good people who are very keen to change things, but they don't have a forum because there's no duty to cooperate between the states or even between different regional bodies within one state. So we're wasting a lot of talent. And I would think that Australia could be an exemplar in this process, and that would be a great aspect of leadership for us to put forward to the world, and we are all in the same boat. We're all ruining our treasure, and to be able to have a duty to cooperate, it's a way that could work in any legal system, and Australia could be the leader in that.